Okay, so cross-country season is here. It's beginning. And there's a lot of things to keep in mind, okay? Whether you're a new coach or experienced coach, I want to share some things that I found to be effective throughout the years, my 2 decades as a coach at the high school, college, post-collegiate level. And again, it's ultimately up to you to decide as a coach what's most important and what you feel is most important for your athletes, right? Or for yourself as a non-coach, or if you're a self-coach, or whatever it might be. But I hope you consider these things, as I have found them to be effective. So again, it's up to you to decide what's how to prioritize training and everything else. Number one, depending on the age of the athlete and the experience of the athlete, I schedule in days off. Okay, high school freshman, high school sophomore, automatic days off on Sundays. Okay, um, high school juniors and seniors, day off every other Sunday, and phasing in the training appropriately, meaning if it's a 6 day a week or 7 day a week training, you're averaging the same amount of miles per day in that particular cycle. So if you're, let's just say 60 miles a week and you're averaging just about 8.5 per day, you're doing the same thing on a 6 day per week, averaging 50 in the opposite week or whatever. I'm not trying to fit in 60 in the 6 days that you weigh in a way you would in the 7 days, because that'll kind of negate the purpose of the off day. Okay, which is to have a balanced training approach. And again, I break it up into 3 cycles. I say this in a lot of my videos. I've got tons of videos about this. I break it up into essentially 3 4-week cycles, and I cycle in certain training emphasis in each cycle, so that yourself or your athletes are ready in the beginning of the season to not only race, ready to transition to the more intense racing and more strategic racing in the second half, the second cycle of the season, and then in the third cycle, the championship season, are ready to run their best when it counts the most. Okay, I'm not a proponent of racing more than once a week unless it's absolutely necessary, particularly on multiple weeks, then you're sacrificing important training. And I've seen far too many situations where kids are racing their best races 6 weeks early and hanging on for dear life during championship season. That to me is not a recipe for success, but I get it. There's certain districts and leagues that either require or heavily encourage racing, dual meets during the week, regular meets on the weekends. I get it. It's very, very difficult to fit in training while racing twice a week. I know there's some situations where kids have to race themselves into shape if they can as part of the training. I get it. Some folks will use certain races as workouts, which to me it's very hard to do, but some people do it. I get it. That's just the reality. That's the situation. But I found to be, effective fitting in more training with less racing, and being able to be selective with the racing so you can maximize the opportunities you do get, high school and college. Okay. And I generally don't see college races doing more than once a week. That's very difficult at 8K, 10K, or even 6K for women. Very, very difficult. I find it very difficult at the high school level too, cycling and that stuff. So it's important to be mindful of that type of stuff when scheduling training for your athletes. Okay, when scheduling workouts, I basically emphasize early season, test your athletes' fitness, see where they're at, so you can set their training paces, and then incorporate hills and either threshold work, the cruise reps or tempos and whatnot, to get them used to running hard twice per week, and then transition into more specific workouts and hybrids of threshold and race pace. So you're starting to infuse some threshold and some race pace. Okay, and then lastly, the last cycle, incorporating more aggressive race pace or even faster than race pace. So they're again ready, but not doing too much of something so that they're getting tired of doing that something. They're not fatiguing the athletes too much by doing 8 weeks or 10 weeks of hard intervals and whatnot. Last thing we want to do is get them getting stale, okay, or having some type of training become redundant. We want them to be able to repeat workouts too. They need to do 1K repeats or 1,000 meter or mile repeats or whatever a couple of times, and infusing it with the right training in between so that they can maximize this particular workout if you feel it's a good workout or staple training for their races that they're going to run. Okay, and being mindful of the type of courses that they're going to run too. If they're racing flat courses, I would design races in flat courses. If they're running hilly courses, I would design certain workouts in hilly areas too, so they're familiar with the racing environment that they're going to be participating in, one way or the other. Okay, fluctuating paces and rolling, mostly flat paces, flats. So trying to simulate the racing environment. I know this video can sound a little harsh sometimes, like I'm attacking coaches and whatnot. No, I'm not. I'm just sharing what I found to be effective. I totally understand situations where coaches have to race kids more than once per week. If you have enough depth on your team, I would race the JV once a week, and then on the alternate race that week, I would race the varsity. If you have the numbers, that way we're not over racing any kids. So if you can get to the point where you have the numbers, then you can also infuse a good amount of training with less racing. So if you're lucky enough to have more than a 7-man or a 7-girl team, maybe 2, then you can be a little bit more creative with your racing strategies. So just a thought. And then cycling in the training appropriately, again, so that they're running their best when it counts the most, which is the end of the season. There are no qualifying times for cross country. Okay? None. It's not like track where you have to run a certain standard to provisionally qualify, to automatically qualify, to qualify for whatever. States, nationals, high school, whatever it might be. So it's racing strategy. And again, the team with the least amount of points wins. So setting up their training so that your athletes can be as close as possible, not only in training, but in races as well, sets you up for success. So I wanted to emphasize these points. Hope you found them helpful. Hit the thumbs up if you did. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, you want to have more detailed conversations about this type of stuff, please do that. Come along for the ride. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers before the end of the season. Your help is greatly appreciated. It means the world. And again, we can do live streams if you want. We could talk about this live time so we can have a discussion, or a Zoom FaceTime. My email address is blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to me there. Feel free to reach out to me in the comments section. I always look at the comments and respond to the comments as well. So train smart, gang. Train hard and have a great season.